Okay, and then I give these to. Yeah, I need you to fill them out now. Right, to you? Okay. It is 6:30, and we would like to go ahead and reconvene the Amador County Unified School District Board meeting. We do have one item to report out from closed session. In closed session, the board voted unanimously to approve the notice of intent to dismiss, the placement on immediate unpaid suspension pending the disciplinary proceedings, and the statement of charges against a teacher. And Dr. Gibson, do we have any deletions or corrections?
No, we do not.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see any presentations and recognitions on the agenda. Do we have any for tonight? Oh, let me refresh, I'm sorry. We do have presentations in order.
Food services.
Food services.
Mr. Pingree.
They're like, do we gotta go? Yes, you do.
Which way do we stand?
Which way you want. Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for your time tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate Sarah and Darcy. Little background, Sarah has been with the district for 8 years, worked at Amador High School and now Jackson Elementary. And same with Darcy, Jackson Elementary and Amador High School, but she's been here for 17 years. Their dedication to the students and as well as the food service program it's just phenomenal. I love working with them. They're willing to, go above and beyond, so without really being asked. And a little background, they might not even know this, but they're doing an average of 8,400 meals a month or 85,000 lunches and breakfasts a year. That's a lot for two people to do. Yeah. Yeah, and it's even better when you think about that. It's only 180 days. That's a lot of meals, and they are an integral part to the program. You ask them to, go fill in somewhere else, and there's never a complaint. They're on it, they do it. They give their time, they give it, freely and lovingly to the kids, and it shows. And I just want to show appreciation for them tonight and present their challenge coins.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys, appreciate it. Want a speech?
You know what I want to say. No, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you guys for your time, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. We know Haley's not here tonight, but you do not escape the photo. So I found the list of presentations. They're actually under public comments on non-agenda items. So Plymouth also has a presentation tonight. Mr. Horacek. Welcome.
Good evening, Board President Burns and members of the board. It's good to see you, Dr. Gibson. I'm proud to introduce Megan Matheson. You may already know Megan as the president of CSEA 827. I know her as a dedicated, talented instructional aide for medically fragile students. While she's worked for the County Office of Education for 18 years, Megan is new to Plymouth Elementary. She transferred to our school with her students, who also moved as part of consolidation. Yes, it is happening. From Jackson Elementary. Plymouth Elementary now hosts the county's special education programs for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. Working with significantly impacted students with disabilities is not my wheelhouse. You may know that I can talk a long time about English language learners. Students with disabilities, I'm learning a lot. With Megan's experience, we spent several weeks this summer preparing the classrooms and the instructional materials for our new arrivals. Lots of laminating and Velcro. Megan helped me interview them and select them. I now have a team of 10 medically fragile instructional aides. Together, we've built a very strong team. I present this evening the challenge coin, recognizing Megan for her excellence and her delivery of the Amador Gold Standard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Joe.
10 sounds like a great number. Okay, so let me back up here. We have employee organizations are a regular part of our agenda. Mrs. Jensen, welcome.
Dr. Gibson, I hope that you're recovering well. Yes, members of the board, members of cabinet. I am happy to announce that the Amador County Teachers Association and the ACUSD leadership have come to a tentative agreement on our contract. We are hoping to, we've backwards designed and hope to have the ability to send it forward to you at the next board meeting with signatures and approval. And it was a couple of years that we blended the two contracts, the ACTA contract and the SEEK contract, bringing over the teachers who teach mild and moderate students to our contract. And it's been long and it's been worth it, and we're really quite excited to be able to say that. And that's really all I'm going to say tonight. Hope you have a great meeting.
Thank you and congratulations.
I just quickly want to make a comment about how much we appreciate the ACTA leadership, because we've made some really amazing strides in the last 2.5 years, and it doesn't go unnoticed by our cabinet. And I just really want to thank both Mr. Hunkins as well as Mrs. Jensen and their teams coming together. It's a lot to do a successor contract. So we're very excited to have that back at the next meeting. But thank you all for your leadership.
I don't see Ms. Martz in the room. I think that might be the first meeting she's missed. We do have one public comment for something that's not on the agenda. So I will read the statement and then we'll have Ms. Sherry Blankenheim. You will be our public speaker here in just a moment. A person wishing to be heard by the board shall first be recognized by the president and shall then proceed to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on non-agenda items. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. If you wish to address the board, please complete a speaker card and give it to the board clerk or communications specialist. Ms. Blankenheim, welcome.
Good evening. I wrote this down so that I could be very succinct. Tonight I'd like to talk about an economic feasibility review for the high school portion of the consolidation. I think it's needed at this time. I spent a great deal of time this week reading documents and searching for information. Unfortunately, meeting agendas and minutes don't really contain updated consolidation information or details, and I've not been able to find any current project assessments to kind of indicate where we are at this point. All projects hit a stage when costs must be updated, analyzed, and the viability of continuing the project determined. The economic climate has changed drastically from when the high school project was first scoped. It's unknown to me if the May 22nd costs were updated, as those documents don't have version numbers or dates kind of to let me know. Just since 2020, materials costs have increased. For example, wood 16%, steel 22%, concrete 15%, and electrical conduit 12%. That means that any estimated construction costs have likely increased between 12 to 22%. The cost of borrowing has also increased greatly, with interest rates now in the 7% range. The project, I think, needs to be reviewed and pared down wherever possible. Is everything on the list needed at the high school? I think a new campus main entrance, parking lot, and circle area perhaps isn't needed. It's been used in the way it is for quite some time. A new secondary school entrance, a new warehouse and maintenance office. It indicated that it was going to be at the transportation facility, and the cost was at $1 million. I don't know if it's been relocated to Ione Junior High. I had heard that, but I haven't found anything in writing. There is a warrant shown in today's board attachment for $1,138,958.78 to Valley Precision Grading Incorporated. The description column has been removed from the report as of this meeting. It was on the last set of meetings, so I don't know where that grading was done. If it was for the warehouse, then it's extremely over budget with nothing yet built. Just for the high school, that entrance drop-off area is $1.5 million. The two-story building at that time was $15 million. A new gym and locker room was estimated $20 million, and a new parking lot at $1.5 million, for a total of around $38 million. This is just the high school part. At a 17% cost increase halfway between that 12 and 22, just as a guess, adds another $6.4 million, bringing it to $44.6 million. Can this small county really afford this for just one school? I feel that it's the board's responsibility to get updated information, to meet, discuss, and then perhaps produce a report validating the overall cost for the sake of transparency. I do a lot of online research, and I've gotten a lot of links and information from Tori. She's been very helpful, but there's still a lot of pieces that I can't quite put my finger on. I've heard that the Amador High School campus was put up as collateral. I can't find anything that tells me.
Mrs. Blankenheim, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I tell her that? Okay. Jared is going to reach out to you to answer some of your concerns.
Yes, and we have offered to meet throughout this week. We've been talking back and forth to schedule a time, so we'll make sure that happens.
Thank you. right, so next on our agenda is the consent agenda, which is really big for tonight. In particular, I'd like to point out that we have several school safety plans on here as part of the consent agenda, as well as the Williams Act quarterly report and the a memo of understanding with the Sac County Office of Ed. Is it Sac County or Sac City?
County.
Sac County Office of Ed Leadership Institute. Did anybody have any questions on any items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I did, and I did not have a chance to prep Jared by asking the question. I too had the question on the $1 million grading from Valley Precision Grading.
That has nothing to do with any of the future consolidation projects. That is the new track at Amador.
Okay,
And that was budgeted previously,
Correct. And approved by the board.
improved, yeah, last fiscal year.
I did have a quick question on site safety plans. Are these written by school principals?
So site safety plans, they actually use a template, and school principals sit down with their school site councils. There's a signature page that you can see in there, and then they bring in their local mayor. And just depending on the jurisdiction, they will have local fire chief, local police chief look over their site safety plan. So it's a collective effort.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Mrs. Pichette, in reading those plans, it says that the administrators go through ICS 100 and 700. Would that be something that we might want to consider for other members of our staff so they understand the incident command system?
That takes place, the principal takes that back to their staff meetings, and they do those trainings during that time.
Okay.
Okay, if we have let me ask if we have any further questions. Anybody else? Okay, then I think we're ready for a motion to approve.
I move that we approve item 12, the consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Whitaker, in a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Clement. Roll call vote, Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Consent agenda is approved. We have no communications, and so we're ready for discussion and action items. And we have two public speakers on the very first one, which is the update regarding the naming, mascot, and colors of the Consolidated High School. So first, we will welcome Ms. Blankenheim back to the podium. And then following Ms. Blankenheim, we'll have Mr. Cagle.
Hello again. Regarding the naming, mascot, and colors, this decision is more than just changing high school names. It's changing the culture of not only two high schools, but the entire community. Ending the decades-long, deeply held rivalry between the schools will not be an easy task, and it should not be taken lightly. Choosing either existing campus name or mascot will only serve to make the existing divide deeper. There was a process publicized to be followed with the thought exchange. Many participated with 1,727 submissions and no restrictions on what could be suggested. The entire process was ended before it was completed and a selection was publicized. To many community members' dismay, the selection of Argonaut colors and mascot rose to the top, likely because many submitters chose not to submit a neutral name. I requested the raw data and was able to get that and scrolled through all of the submissions. To my surprise and joy, there were many great ideas. Now, before I run out of time, I'd like to propose that I share the list compiled with the board members. They could then select 5 or 10 new neutral names and mascots to be voted on by both high school students, possibly the entire community, to select a neutral option. The cost to implement the name change was budgeted, so this effort isn't at an additional cost. Honestly, some tasks, such as this one, have a priceless outcome and are worth every penny. Here are a couple of examples from the neutral list. High school names: Gold Rush, Gold Sierra, Sierra Pines, Western Sierra, Amador Ridge, and Thunder Ridge, referring to Thunder Mountain, which is in our county upcountry. Mascots: Grizzly, Buck, Mountain Lion, Black Bear, Golden Falcon, and Thunderbolt. My recommendation is that the thought exchange input solicitation be conducted again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Caleb Cagle. I'm here as the ASB advisor, and I'm here reading a statement written by our ASB president, Sudie Smith, who could not be here. She's playing in the big game at Argo right now. So on behalf of the ASB class students, this message is condensed to try to fit the speaking time. Students voted today to approve this message. The message is in regards to the consolidation, branding, and Amador student viewpoint. Prior to the release of the thought exchange, Mr. Brewer assured their ASB class the process of branding the new high school would be student-led and with the voices heard from the students 6th grade and higher. It was our understanding that the process would be a step-by-step. We were encouraged to brainstorm new ideas and didn't include the past or present branding of Amador County high schools. After the meeting we had with Mr. Brewer, we felt encouraged and excited in being involved in this process, so we started thoughtful brainstorming. However, 1 week later, we learned that the results of the thought exchange suddenly became final results of a voting process, rather than a forum to share ideas. And it was known that the thought exchange was actually going to be utilized as a voting process. We would have advertised greatly to our Amador student population to participate in order to ensure student voices were heard. When the results were shared and determined to be final, Amador students felt as though they had been stripped of any identity in the new consolidated high school. Even though the proposed name is Amador County High School, which is supposed to be the tribute to Amador High School, it is still not our name and is a tribute to our entire county rather than the beloved high school that exists. The colors proposed already belong to Argonaut along with the campus location and mascot, which makes for a clearly imbalanced merging of school cultures. Argonaut students won't need to buy new apparel as many have grown up wearing Mustang shirts. Therefore, Amador students would have an economical disadvantage due to having to switch from Buffalo merchandise to Mustang. Overall, these results were hurtful to Amador students when shared with the public as a final decision because we felt blindsided and misled after being told that we were to create new ideas, and rest assured that the decisions would be made through a process, not a single exchange of thoughts. Feeling our frustration, Mr. Brewer agreed to attend another class meeting. He did so quickly and attentively, which we were all grateful and appreciative of in the ASB members. However, it seemed at the end of the discussion, the only wiggle room for proposed branding was to add blue into the colors. Majority of the ASB class agreed that the colors were navy blue and gold, that they would be more content as it feels as if the more equal color representation to honor the closing of both schools. However, the majority still felt that the new name and mascot were necessary to ensure that the transition to the new school would be as equal to both Amador and Argonaut populations. With such a delicate yet historical change, we felt that the student's voice should be represented. Therefore, a survey was created to gather the data to support the accuracy of the Amador High student population, and not just the Amador or the ASB class and our own concerns and opinions. Our students felt that merging of the brand was one-sided we could understand why Argo students wouldn't mind it. What would be changing for them simply more students on campus, a few new buildings, and Amador County painted over Argonaut's name.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cagle, your 3 minutes are up.
No problem. You can find the rest of this on the email that was sent.
Can I make a comment, please? Is there any way that we can receive a copy of that? And I also feel that he should finish, being that it's the voice of the students.
Yes, I was just gonna say that I wanna make sure it formally gets, I wanna make sure that it gets read, and all the board and myself all have copies of that, so if you wanna go ahead and finish that. Mr. Cagle, tell me again where you just left off on that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just finished, and again, some of it was trying to condense student writing. I finished, there's like 2 paragraphs left. So
Okay, so I'll have Mrs. Burns go ahead and finish that up.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the last 2 paragraphs. Due to our feeling of student voices being stripped away and misled, we, Amador ASB, requested Mr. Brewer to attend another class meeting. He did so quickly and attentively, which was greatly appreciated by all ASB members. However, it seemed at the end of the decision that the only wiggle room for the proposed branding was to add blue into the colors. Majority of the ASB class agreed that if the colors were navy blue and gold, they would be more content, as that feels like a more equal color representation to honor the closing high schools. However, the majority still felt that a new name and mascot were necessary to ensure that the transition to the new school would be as equal to both Amador and Argonaut populations. I feel as though it is my duty as ASB president to ensure that Amador student voices are heard in this delicate yet historic change. Therefore, I created a survey to share with the Amador student population to collect a more accurate representation of Amador student options so that I could accurately represent Amador High School and not just the ASB class in my own concerns and opinions. Why would Argonaut students be upset with the results of the thought exchange when there is no change for them? What would be changing for them? Simply more students on campus, a few new buildings, and Amador County painted over Argonaut's name. How is that the new campus that was promised to the community? I understand that these results were derived from community input. However, the data collected is not a valid source due to the fact that one person can vote as many times as they want. This makes the data set entirely inaccurate, and truly it feels as if it's a shortcut. There's no way to tell the community the student participation ratio, which I believe is crucial when taking into account the responses. The platform can be a great tool and asset for the community to share ideas, but due to its programming, there's absolutely no way that it should be the format used for voting to take place. When we conducted our student surveys through Google Form, the results were as follows. They had 62% of their student population with 397 students. She has a breakdown by class of how many participated, with almost 70% from the freshman and sophomore classes, over 70% from the junior class, and only 41% from the senior class. The breakdown for did they participate in the thought exchange was 25% of the participants did, 75% of the participants did not. And then for the branding option, 84% of the Amador student survey would like to see a completely new brand with name, color, and mascot. And 16% were fine with Amador County High, Mustangs, and green, gold, and white. She also has a personal statement here. I will go ahead and read that just in the interest of, I believe we still have time on our 20 minutes. I personally believe that a complete rebranding is necessary. When Ione and Jackson High School consolidated in 1983, many people were very upset with the attempt at merging the two schools. That was 40 years ago, and there are still many families in this historic community that are upset about the mascot staying that of Ione High School. It doesn't make sense to me why we would add another 100 years of Amador High School history into that battle. I hope we can learn from our mistakes of the past and create a fresh start for those attending this new high school. Amador students are already having to transition to a new campus, so I truly hope that all the steps will be taken to ensure that this transition will be as equal for Amador students as possible. Even though I personally won't be attending this school as I will be graduating in 2025, my younger brother will be a part of the first freshman class. When I read to him the proposed ACUSD branding, he immediately said, "I don't want to go to Argonaut, nothing is different." This is a 7th grade response, but it couldn't have summed up the feelings better. When looking at Argonaut's campus, what would be changing? I truly believe a fresh start will create an opportunity for unification of Amador and Argonaut students rather than a division over trying to equally merge the branding. That is an impossible feat with the consolidated school already being on Argo's campus. My family has worked at Amador since 1972 when my grandpa, Lauren Lukens, began teaching at Amador, as well as my grandma, Sherry Lukens, shortly after. Amador holds my family's legacy throughout the classroom walls, fields, and trophies, truly from the ground up. My blood has bled blue since day one, as my mom, Lara Eichmann, also works at Amador now. The Amador staff is a family which I have been raised by. As hard as it has been to accept that Amador High School will be gone, that legacy won't be forgotten. The Amador High and Argonaut High legacies and memories will live no matter what. We need a new start, a blank slate for the new high school's legacy to grow. By keeping parts of the old, It is blocking the opportunity for the new. I challenge the district to offer creative ideas and solutions to the branding process and allow the students to have a voice, as they will be the ones attending this campus and new school. I truly hope that this process will proceed thoughtfully. I understand that history is important, along with legacy, but there are other ways than merging the branding to do that. An idea to still honor both high schools would be to have both the Bronze Buffalo and Bronze Mustang in a designated area on the consolidated high school's campus to honor those closing schools and their respective history and legacies. I truly want to thank you all for taking the time to hear the ASB class, student population, and my own voice. I wish I could attend tonight, however, I will be playing in the Amador Argonaut volleyball game, which happens to be at the same time as the board meeting. I want to sincerely thank you for your time and effort. Sudie Smith, ASB President. So we have many items to be presented so that we can discuss. I would like to move to the first one, and I think that we will have lots of opportunities to respond to the concerns in Sudie's very thoughtful email. So the first item that is being presented to us is the thought exchange data.
So the thought exchange data was actually presented exactly how it was originally brought to the board. It opened on the day we said it was going to open. It closed at the time we said it was going to close. And we did not put any restrictions, meaning we did not say that we would not or could not use any of the current names, colors, mascots, those types of things. It was strictly an open-ended question. So in the packet, you're going to see the data that was presented. We had 2,283 participants with 1,727 thoughts with 72,136 ratings. With the link that participants had, you can go in, and then once you go through the process, the only thing you're allowed to go back in and do are the ratings. You can see on page 3 what's called the word cloud. And in that word cloud, what it does is it brings up the most commonly used words, and the larger the word, the more frequently it was brought up throughout the entire exchange. The next couple of slides talk about the key thoughts. So the thoughts were, the top ranked thoughts were, it should be Amador Unified High School, Amador High School, and Amador County High, I'm sorry, and then there was 2 for Amador County High School. Then the next one you're going to see on the slide, it says high school keep versus change, the top themes by score. So those are the top words. So the top word was Amador. The next word was keep, and that was and I'll get to that in just a second. It's meaning like keep portions of both. There was a lot of talk about fiscal responsibility that I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. The next key word was combination, and then the fourth, which was a little bit more than a half a point, but not too far behind, was to do a complete change. So those were the top 4. The top thoughts, again, when they were ranked, again, it should be Amador High School, Amador County High School, Amador County High School. The top thoughts for under keep were keep the Mustangs, keep Amador County Mustangs and Junior High Buffaloes, and then to keep the Mustangs. Under combination, the key words were Amador Mustangs, color should be blue and gold. Amador County High School, school name, shows where we are from, represents all of the county, Amador County. And then the third one was Amador Mustangs. For the change, the top ones were Gold Country, Miners, Motherlode Miners, blue and gold. So that's the data that was compiled through the thought exchange. These slides are actually created directly from that data. So there's pieces that allow us to put this together directly, so we don't have a computation error. So that's the first piece. Are there any questions? We can come back to questions later. I don't know if you want me to go through all these first, or you want me to go one by one.
Does anyone have a question that they need answered before we see more information? James?
Can I ask a question? Were students informed on what they should or should not use as their vote. Did I say that correctly?
I think you mean, were they told what they could and couldn't put in as their thought or their rankings?
Correct.
No, the question was open-ended for everyone. So the students saw the same thought exchange as community members and/or staff. Any other questions on
At
A?
both schools?
At all schools, yeah.
All schools?
Yep.
Or wherever the
Wherever it was posted.
question was posted at?
Yes, correct.
So no staff were telling students that they should or should not put LA County Cougars, or don't put Amador County Eagles, or you should put, you can't put, that nobody said any of that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. That should not have happened. If it did, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Is this just question time or is this comment time?
Probably, it's up, however you guys want to do this. We have a few other documents, so maybe if we do questions per document, and then we can kind of have a overall conversation once we get all the information. Does that work? Okay. So item B was the notice that was created as information for the Consolidation Community Input Team. The input team agreed, their recommendation was agreed to move forward with what was presented in the thought exchange. There was some great in-depth conversations in regards to the colors and those types of things, which, obviously until we brought everything to the board for final approval, nothing was completely set. We had a great conversation about the fact that of course, our intent was the full rebranding, but with this data, we definitely needed to come back to the board and have a thorough discussion about the fiscal responsibility that is noted throughout the thought exchange versus doing a complete rebranding. And so that's really what we're here to talk about tonight. The notice to all community members is a very similar notice. I just wanted to put all of this in here, if nothing else, for historical purposes. And so that was the notice that went out to the community members. And then there was the portion where the students were involved, and I'm going to invite Mr. Brewer to come up. I don't think the board has met Mr. Brewer just yet. If you want to come up to the microphone. And I'm going to turn this portion over both to Mr. Brewer as well as to Maeve. Maeve and Peyton have been working closely with Mr. Brewer through this process, and I think one of the greatest parts of this, and Maeve can talk more about this, but is that they've been working across school sites. And so it has started to bring this collaboration between the two high schools, which has been fantastic. So, Mr. Brewer.
Good evening, Board President Burns, Dr. Gibson, and cabinet members. Thanks for having me this evening. So I initiated the process by going to both schools back in early September and meeting with the student leadership groups at both Argonaut and at Amador, and talked to them about the thought exchange, that it would be coming, that they needed to inform students that it would be coming. And also, all students got notified. Every time you got a notification about the thought exchange, students got that in their school email, along with staff. So it was put out several times. We wanted to make sure people were totally informed and knew what the process was. During my meetings with the students, I spoke to them about creativity or purpose and meaning behind names. So I shared with them about Thunder Mountain, that you could name the school Thunder Ridge because there's a connection to the county. I also shared the name Legacy High School as a possible thing in an effort to show them to be thoughtful. If you're going to create a new name, try to find some meaning to tie it to the county or the past or to history. After that process, both organizations, both student leadership groups, decided they would come up with a process to inform students on their campus about the thought exchange to elicit participation. So after that point, that's when Maeve came in, and I believe she's got a statement from Peyton that they did some internal processes without me in the room to figure out how they were going to advertise to students and how they were going to carry the process forward.
Go ahead, Maeve. Either one.
I'll start with Peyton's. So this is her statement. A lot of our student population felt like their voices were not heard even after having 2 meetings with district personnel. our ASB class sent out a poll to Amador High School students to engage them in our own data, and the results backed up how all the students felt and how the first thought exchange wasn't publicized enough. Amador ASB hopes to continue to be a part of the decision-making process moving forward. ASB students have prepared a joint statement that will be read aloud tonight, but the entire statement was sent via email to the district personnel. And then at Argonaut, I feel like the feelings regarding the name and the mascot have been a little bit different, which Sudi kind of explained in her statement, and I totally understand because consolidation will be taking place at Argonaut, and that will be the campus that the high school is housed. So I understand why our student populations would kind of have like a different perspective. But after Mr. Brewer met with our ASB class, we started how our class works. We kind of just have like open-ended discussions and just write all of our ideas on the board. So we kind of just did that, and we started brainstorming some like new ideas and some old ideas that were like kind of reused between the two schools now. So we definitely brainstormed. I think a lot of our like ASB class felt that Amador County High School was very like representative of the entire county, because we thought that even though it was included Amador's name, it still was representative of the entire student population because we all live in Amador County. And then I feel like I don't think we understood, like we weren't under the impression that we were meant to really inform the student population that this thought exchange was super important, that they express their ideas. I feel like if we knew that this was going to be a bigger part of the decision-making process, we probably would have advertised that better. So I don't think that a lot of students actually did participate in the thought exchange. So I don't know how many student voices were actually heard through that process. But even after the proposed Amador County High name and the Mustang as the mascot came out, I didn't hear any negative feedback or responses to it. And again, like I said, I think that's because consolidation doesn't feel like as big of a change because we're keeping our campus. But overall, there hasn't been much negativity regarding the proposed name and mascot. And then after the name and mascot came out, we started brainstorming more ideas for colors. And we didn't really feel like it would be fair to keep green and gold as the school colors because, like Sudi said, that's kind of keeping Argonaut as it is. So we really like the idea of bringing Amador's navy blue and Argonaut's gold together, and we already looked at a bunch of like college teams who have the blue and the gold, and we really liked how that looked. So that's kind of where we've left off about consolidation.
Thank you, Maeve. And throughout the rest of this meeting, Maeve, if you have other things to add as the board members ask, please chime in.
For sure.
Mr. Brewer, any other, and you're welcome to just probably stay up here for a minute or two because I'm sure we're going to need your expertise here. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Critchfield to just walk us through the cost estimates. As he said previously, a complete rebranding is part of our budget for consolidation. So us bringing this to you has nothing to do with that component. It really was about the voice of those who did participate, making it known about the fiscal responsibility aspect. And so I asked Mr. Critchfield to put together just some really rough estimates about the costs for the rebranding scenario. So Mr. Critchfield.
Yeah, so this is the attachment under Part E. And I just played out two different scenarios knowing the results of the thought exchange. Scenario 2 is what I'll focus on first because, again, when we budgeted for consolidation, it was under the assumption that the name and mascot could completely change and colors, right? At that point, we didn't know what the result was going to be. We knew we'd go through a process. And so, of course, when I'm building a budget, I'm going to think about, well, what's the most expensive way this could go? And of course, that would be a new name, a new mascot, and new colors. And so you can see some of the things, some of the costs identified. You might wonder, why are there ranges? First of all, when it comes to construction and those types of costs, you always need to start with a range because, as was mentioned in public comment earlier, things can change, but it also depends on preferences. I'll use the logo as an example, 55,000 to 75,000. You're dealing with an artist and with how many colors do you want in the logo and the design of it, and the cost can vary pretty tremendously on a turf field on what the logo may cost. Also with painting, there's obviously a lot of green on that campus, and so painting over that green and the cost that comes there. And then when I mentioned school identifiers, I kind of lay that out: signs, statues, those types of things that make the school known for its name and or mascot, whether that be murals, signs, statues, other painting on the gym floor. All of those types of things are kind of encapsulated in that category as well. Again, I'm going to go back to the turf because I know the turf fields have been a point of public contention at times. You do not have to replace an entire turf field. That's not the process when you're going to change out things. They can do any part of the field as we see fit. And so if one end zone needs to change, there would be a cost. If two, obviously the cost would increase, or the logo, but they would not be replacing the entire field to do those things. They cut out that section of turf and replace it with whatever needs to be put in there, whether that be a new name, mascot, or logo. And so you can see with no change, or not no change, with minimal change, if it were based on the thought exchange, Amador County Mustangs, we're estimating the cost to be about $35,000 to $85,000 versus if we go for an entire new name, mascot, and colors, the cost estimate would be $430,000 to $550,000.
Thank you. So all that information being said, what we're asking for from the board is some direction on how you want us to proceed, whether it be, we have any option we want to come up with. So whether it's, we go completely out and say, nope, we want to do a full rebranding, let's go back out and let's put some parameters on specific things that you can and cannot have in the thought exchange. We can move forward with the suggestion, and I think if I've heard correctly, maybe I want to make sure that I have this correct, that Amador County Mustangs, blue and gold, both school sites, and I know I talked to Peyton today as well, and she agreed that both schools are comfortable with that. So really, those are the two avenues that we have at this point, based on the data and the community input that we have versus going out and just completely doing a full rebranding, which we absolutely can do. And so that's why it's now for the board.
I would like each board member and our student board member to have an opportunity to ask for questions and make comments individually, if that's agreeable to everyone. Mr. Crow, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I guess my first question would be, and maybe Jared can answer, would you have any kind of bid item that's in the consolidation that would be covered by $430,000 to $550,000?
So as far as bid items like laid out in the cost estimates?
In the estimate, is there like an example of like some kind of classroom upgrade, something for the science department, something for the literature, something for drama, or whatever? Is there something that can be, I guess, presented that this money, if there's a full rebranding that didn't take place, that money would be used to offset these costs, or would be that would cover the same cost as if we did some type of whatever we did in the new construction?
No, I think I understand your question. I think for me, the challenge here is would you like me to focus on the consolidated high school or district-wide?
I think if there's just district-wide, if you had something that
right.
the district district did not spend this money for a full rebrand, what would that could be used for?
What's the current estimate that we have right now just for roofing across the district that we could put this towards, I guess, is a great, because that's just an automatic necessary need.
It's millions. I mean, just roofing alone is in the millions of our needs, and we've put in over $1 million in roofing over the last few years. You could start there. When you said that, one of my first thoughts was HVAC at Amador High, which will become the consolidated junior high. We have two major issues that we're still working through at Amador. Amador's our one gymnasium that's still running on a swamp cooler. We've been actively working on that for the last couple years, but we've hit major hurdles with the state architect on getting that approved to be able to put in HVAC there. We also have a chiller system which is antiquated, and it is one unit that's about the size of a Suburban, and it cools the A building and B building in Amador. If you're familiar with those buildings at the high school, the B building is the largest building on that campus outside the gymnasium, and then the A building is where the office is, and 4 classrooms are located. And so that one chiller actually cools both of those buildings. So one use of those funds could be to support the consolidated junior high in improving the HVAC.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question would be, what if, say, we decided as a board to spend another time period, whether it's wait till the next board meeting, is there any impacts as far as delaying the decision? If we have further discussion, or we have further discussion with the community as far as the
Are you referring to construction
No,
impacts?
no,
No.
I'm talking as far as the rebranding. If we wait a month and we have further discussions, by a board, with the schools, with the students, is that going to impact any type of process in the consolidation?
No, not at all. So our plan, our original plan was, I want to say 3 to 6 months was our goal. So really by the January board meeting, we need to have this really solidified. So we have plenty of time. We got out in front of this early, knowing that nothing's ever going to go perfectly with consolidation. And so, we do have time.
Okay, last question. On the, that survey, what was the program you used, the thought exchange? Can that be set up so that each vote could be 1 for 1? So you don't have one person voting 100 times, trying to skew numbers? Can you make it so that they have to log in with an email address, and then everyone's vote is basically one time?
Yes, and I wish Haley was here. I believe when we talked to her about that, when you put in the thoughts, sorry, I just turned my microphone off. When you put in the thoughts, the only thing you can go back in and do is re-ranking, and then once you close it, then you can't go back in. We can use a completely different platform if we think we need to collect additional data. We can do that as well.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I have a few thoughts on some of this. First off, the thought exchange is a good idea. I think it gives opportunity for ideas to be thrown out there, a good brainstorming tool, but I do not think it should be serving at all as the actual voting. If you even just read some of the top thoughts, for example, save money on rebranding, has history in I own where you have successfully taken another school from the community. Comments like this, while understandable, should not be the top vote. That's just silly, honestly. At this point, and in my opinion, and lots of others who have reached out to me, it feels as if this point in time, if we were to go in this direction, that we are simply closing Amador and moving all those kids over to Argonaut's campus with Argonaut's mascot and colors, throw in a splash of boo to call it good, and make it consolidated. And that's something that I'm not okay with, and if there was a vote tonight, that would be definitely no from me. It was said that the students weren't given any direction as to what they should or shouldn't be naming the new high school. However, I've seen pictures of assignments on Google Classroom saying the opposite. So if this is the information that students are being given, why are we not taking that into consideration when we are choosing a name? Fiscal responsibility, I have specifically asked this question before, what about the football fields, etc., and was told that we would do a full rebrand and we're building a budget around it, as Mr. Critchfield had said in his presentation. There are places to cut back, but the integrating and building of a school culture and identity is not one of them. I think that's not okay. If we're going to do this, it has to be done correctly. We're not simply moving Amador students and putting them at Argonaut. It's been stated many times over, we're closing 2 high schools and starting a new one. But ultimately, at this point, it does not feel like that is what is happening. I understand the process, I understand the thought exchange, but this isn't the process that was advertised. The process that was advertised was that we were gonna do a thought exchange, there would be student collaboration, there would be voting, there would be a whole thing. Now, we got these thought exchanges from a handful of people, and we've suddenly somehow just gone down this path, and it's just not, the procedure is not being followed. We need to do this the correct way. The students that are being moved from their home school deserve to have representation just as much as everybody else, and this cannot be about which of the sides is going to shout the loudest to get what they want, because they don't want things to change.
I just want to make a really quick comment. So the process itself was followed. I think where Cabinet and Mr. Brewer and I, this is why we're here tonight, where we kind of hit this spot is when we pulled the thought exchange data, the top data was all the same. So there was, when we looked at, let's say, the top 5, the top 3 were very clear, and the next 2 were nowhere near the number of rankings. And so that's why we're here tonight to say this wasn't what we anticipated happening. This is the feedback we received from the community. Now, which direction do we want to go? Do we want to go back and redo it and have those parameters, or do we want to move forward? That's why we're here, because the thought exchange itself and the data kind of stopped us through that process.
Which I understand, but I think the data is not an accurate representation, because I think we're getting a lot of comments from disgruntled people from a 40 years past consolidation.
Sure, and
I represent Ione, so I get that.
Yeah.
I understand that, but this is where we're at, is where we're at, and that's just,
Yeah.
So I think when it comes down to it, it should not be stopping here. And I've received numerous emails. I've been communicating with for Amador High School ASB president all week, who is not, this is not what they wanted.
Sure,
So.
and again, that's why we wanted to bring this back here, so that in my opinion, I think if we go back out, that's 100% fine. I think we just need to make that clear to the community as to why we did that, because we did have over 2,200 people participate. That's a pretty large number, actually, believe it or not. So the hard part is getting people to participate. That is the hardest part in a school district. We put this out far and wide, and it tends to happen that when something doesn't go the way one group wants, because what's going to happen is if we go back out, the 2,200 people who participated are going to say, well, what happened to my voice? Because I did participate. So it's really a balance. And again, that's why we want the board to decide and tell us where you want us to go next.
And I totally get that. I get that process. But when it comes to the 2,200 people that participated, I think that people participating is valuable, and it should be taken into consideration. However, the 2,200 people, how many of them are 50 years old with no children in school? How many of that we don't know. This should be about, the student should be choosing this. They are the ones that have to go to school there.
But that's not the direction the board gave us. The board wanted the full community to participate, and so that is what we did.
And I understand that, and I agree that the community should participate, but it should not be the final stop where the community is the one that chooses it when the students are not feeling like they are choosing their own thing.
Sure, I get that.
Maeve, would you like to go now, or would you like to wait?
I'll wait.
That is perfectly fine. Mr. Marzano.
I too have seen screenshots from community members of Google Classroom directing students, I guess, with parameters of what they can or cannot say or put on this thought exchange. That's actually why I asked those questions. So the answers that I received here tell me that that was site level stuff rather than district level. And I appreciate Mr. Crow asking, you know, I don't know the proper term, but comparative of funds maybe. Like, if we don't do this, what could be bought? Like, if I don't drink Starbucks for a week, what can I buy? I appreciate that analogy. But I really feel that we spend a lot, or we waste a lot of money all the time anyways. So what are we doing? We spend money where we shouldn't. We got to keep it all the same, so to speak. Does that make sense? Am I saying it right? Thinking back, I don't feel that it was presented to me, or I don't feel what happened was what was presented to me when I actually asked the question on the varsity brand agenda item. It was explained to me that the board was going to vote based on intel or information from the community, and then varsity brand was going to take over. Because I asked a specific question because questions were asked to me from community members, and I don't feel that this right now or the thought exchange was what was presented to us. I think it should go back out to the community. That's what I feel. And I also appreciate the kids at Amador, the students at Amador, voicing their opinions and being pillars for their peers. Absolutely.
I have a unique perspective in the fact that I came to this district in 1984, which was 1 year after consolidation. And feelings were still very, very high then. My understanding was when they combined the two high schools, the kids voted Jackson Ione High School, and the board said, no, you can't have that, and came up with a name and did everything else there. I feel that the students on both sides have got some feelings on this, and I really respect their feelings because this is going to be their high school. You figure every sophomore and below is going to be affected by the name of this school. And in looking at the letter from Amador High School today, they talked about what percentage participated in the thought exchange. Only 25% of the students, that was 99 students, if I remember correctly, 99 students had a chance to put thought exchange in, and I think we need more input from the students. So I really want to see more input from the students. Looking at the notice to all community members, that letter, one of the suggestions has been the minors. One of the thought things in there, and let me get to it here. They talk about the minors being a popular suggestion from the community, but many of our Native Americans were adversely affected by the gold miners in this area. I went to a talk at the Kennedy Mine about 3 weeks ago presented by local Native Americans, and they were showing us some of these atrocities that had happened. So I don't feel that that necessarily would be a good mascot, because I don't want to offend the Native Americans just as much as I don't want to offend the thoughts of Amador High School students or Argonaut High School students. And as we were told before, we're closing down 2 high schools and making a new high school. So I really think that we need to take another look at this and really get the input from the students where they have a larger voice in that, because I think that that's very important. I mean, personally, I have a student that built the gate at Argonaut that says Mustangs, and I'm very proud of that student's work. So, you know, I have that there, but I'm also thinking about all the students out there, and I really think we need to hold off and not vote on this tonight and give direction to the cabinet to go out and get more input from the students, maybe get them together at the same time so they can sit in a room and do that, and have the people that are not necessarily overseeing the process, putting their 2 cents in, just making sure that everything happens and facilitate conversations, not get their own personal bias in there. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
You're welcome to sit down if you don't want to stand there the whole time.
I can stand.
Okay.
I'm still good in case you have a question. I'm fine. I
Okay.
was sitting a lot today, so standing's pretty comfortable right now.
All right, all right. There have been so many great questions and comments already. I think it was Kayla that asked or pointed out that sometimes the majority voice is not necessarily the way to go. Like sometimes as a governing body, you have to support the minority voice, that's the right thing to do. That's the action that is called for. And I guess I hadn't thought of that in terms of this voting process. I really hadn't considered that might be ultimately the decision that we may look at. I also, one of the things that I did like about the thought exchange was that it allowed you to consider the combination of the name, the mascot, and the colors together. To me, it felt very like a compromise, that if we took the name for Amador and kept the mascot of Mustangs as a nod to Ione, and then the colors, even with the green and gold, with some blue thrown in, and now they're saying blue and gold. I feel like that's very collaborative, but hearing the questions and the concerns and the voices that we have tonight, I think that it's obvious to you guys that I'm a little bit emotional about this because it really touches my heart. Not every family has generations of history on each high school campus. I mean, Argonaut is even young as a high school campus. But I think Sudi's letter really represents how deep the feelings can go in this community. I do believe that a student-only collaboration might be different than a community-wide collaboration, because I don't think the students, one of their top 3 priorities is going to be cost.
Correct.
I think perhaps, given that the total cost of a rebranding being well under $1 million, not that $1 million is nothing, Jared. But it's a decision, it's $1 million that we'll spend for how many more decades of future high school students. So I am actually going to ask Maeve, would you like to add anything?
Sure, yeah, I'll add something. Overall, I just feel like when you guys, I had a meeting with Sudi last Friday, and we kind of just talked and shared how our different ASB classes were feeling, and it was definitely kind of a shock to me because I guess I wasn't blind to how they were feeling, but I guess I kind of, I didn't realize how big of a change it felt for them, and now after talking to Sudi, I realized that leaving their campus and coming to Argonaut is a big step in itself. So I definitely feel like because they didn't feel that their voices were heard and they don't seem particularly happy with the outcome of the thought exchange, that I definitely agree that it would be nice to try to hear more of the student voice, especially because and be able to kind of combine and compare the student voices at Argonaut and Amador. And even if we're able to, I know it's hard to combine our classes and actually get together in person, but if there's some way to work one-on-one with each other and kind of have that discussion together and bounce ideas off of each other, I feel like that would be super helpful. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Is there a way to do just a student only from Amador and Argonaut thought exchange, where you could start there? Is that something
so I was waiting for Maeve to finish, and hearing all of this, what I suggest we do is we create an updated survey. I don't think I want to use Thought Exchange this time. I think I want to use something that's a little bit more in-depth. One of the reasons that we chose Thought Exchange is that people can see the live raw data. So the raw data isn't hidden to where in another platform, it's always going to be hidden. And that's one of the beauties of Thought Exchange is everybody gets to see kind of what's happening in real time. So I think I would propose that we go back out. It's my proposal is that it's student and staff driven only. We do a survey back out. I say we leave it completely open-ended like we did before. Tell us what you think, and we can do name, color, mascot all separately in a full survey type format. And then from there, then I say, Mr. Brewer, we can even get the classes together on like a Zoom. So we can, I mean, COVID taught us nothing. It taught us that you can be anywhere and participate, right? So we can make that arrangement where we then take all of that data and work with the students. And then I think it would be beneficial to have both Maeve and our student board member from Amador, Peyton, come back once we have that whole process completed. And I would say we won't have that completed until the December board meeting.
Yeah.
So we make sure we have enough time. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I think that's a good idea and a good start, just because of the screenshots of
Yeah.
Google Classroom. I don't know the correct word, where staff, and it looks like, because I don't think students create Google Classrooms.
No.
Influence from staff.
Sure.
Or pencil whipping. I don't know how to say it, but just influence.
Influence, yeah, I think that's a perfect
Yeah.
word. Yeah, I would agree. And that's not anything that we were aware of either. So I think if we do it that first round that way, and then I would imagine we're not going to get 3 of the top 3 things being identical. Well, it won't allow for it this way. It's going to be a true first place, second place, third place. There will be a winner, where the Thought Exchange was a little bit different. And then from there, then Mr. Brewer could go back out. So we'll go back up to like step 3 or 4 in our process, and go back to that piece and start there, and then bring it back to the students to come up with the rebranding. And if the students on their own decide to do a rebranding, great. If they decide to, go back to this, as long as the board, we just wanted everybody to be fully informed and get direction. We're completely okay with that.
Okay.
Is there anybody that wants to oppose that
No,
process?
I'm not opposing it. I just am wondering if we can make it known to both schools, like the minors being derogatory in some sense.
So when we get the top 5 or 6, what will happen is, going back to Mr. Marzano, which is great that you brought that up about varsity sports, we will run, before the students get to see that data, we will run those top, let's say 6 through varsity sports. They will run them through their database first. Honestly, the ones that were brought up even tonight by a public speaker, the minor, I think the minor was the only one that would have been pulled out of that group, from what I can think of. Now, there may be one other one that we don't know something about that they know about, but what would happen is things that go to the students would only be things that have already been cleared through varsity sports.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Thinking down the road, those conferences that we go to are very helpful and teach me quite a bit of stuff. Thinking 10 years from now, are we going to have to do this again when our community grows so big that one high school won't hold all of us?
No, the high school can hold 14 plus 1,500, Jared.
Yeah, the high school will be able to hold 1,300 plus students, but we also have to remember that, this goes back quite a few board meetings. I know people are focused on growth in the county. Growth is tapering off in the county, and we have major, major water issues in this county that will depress future developments until those are resolved. And the Amador Water Agency identified over $100 million that needs to be spent in order to add future developments, and they've put a stop on developments in a variety of communities already in here. And so I don't know if it's an automatic bet that the high school is going to grow huge over the next decade plus. It's not appearing that way based on the projections of where housing will go.
Okay, so we have, do we need a motion for direction from the board, or are you guys just happy you have what you need?
No, I don't think we need a formal motion. I just wanted that direction. The only formal motion we would have needed is if we were going to actually make a vote tonight on the name, which we're clearly not doing. So I just made some notes in here that we're going to have it be student and staff participation only, which is great because we easily have those databases, that we're going to use something that does identifier. So what we will do is when we do the survey, we will pull out identifiers. Are you a student or staff member? What school do you attend? We can even do it by grade level.
Yeah.
So that way we can really, really dig deep into the data. I think that's going to be really important as well. So we will, I have a whole plan in my mind to make that all happen and get some good solid data.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you, Mr. Brewer.
you'll see
Thank
us
you.
back in December for this topic.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Okay, so 14.2 is a public hearing for sufficiency of instructional materials. Am I actually opening the public hearing? Okay. The hearing is open. I'm going to read this little blurb. It says, Education Section 60119 requires that local governing boards hold an annual public hearing and adopt a resolution stating whether each pupil in the LEA has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials in reading and language arts, mathematics, science, and history social science aligned to content standards and consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum framework adopted by the State Board of Education. Would anyone like to make a comment at the public hearing? I don't have any cards. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we're going to move on to item 14.3, sufficiency of instructional materials. This is a resolution presented by Ms. Pichette.
Yes, so this resolution, based on Education Code 60119, requires that local governing boards by the 8th week adopt a resolution stating whether each pupil in the LEA has sufficient textbooks in the areas of reading, language arts, mathematics, science, and history social science. And as notated in the resolution, all of those items were met. Each student has sufficiency of curriculum. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions about this? We do this every year, correct?
Every year.
If no one has questions regarding the resolution or our instructional materials, I would ask for a motion to approve.
I move to approve item 14.3, sufficiency of instructional materials resolution.
I'll go ahead and second.
Thank you, Ms. Parker and Mr. Whitaker. We'll do a roll call vote with the advisory vote first. Maeve?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
And Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving to 14.4, which is a continuation of last board meeting with the board bylaw update. Dr. Gibson?
So before I pass this over to you, President Burns, and the board members, I just want to walk you through the 3 items that are in here. So the first, because there is one item that I would like for sure, no matter what happens with this item tonight, I definitely want you to vote on that item, and that is C. So let me tell you first, 4A, those documents are the requests of the board for us to go out and get samples. I want to thank Lori. Within about 10 minutes of my request, she had this whole entire pile of policies from all of her people. So thank you, Lori, for that support. So those are all sample items for you on other board bylaws 9270 that people use across the state. The next one, item B, is our current board bylaw, conflict of interest that was presented, or, just brought forward last time. That was in 2018 is when that one was brought forward. There is an updated one as of March of 2023 that we were waiting on all of the board bylaws to bring forward. That is item C. There's not a lot of change that really matters for the topic as to why this was brought to the board. You can see the clean and the marked up copy. Really, it's about financial contributions as a board member is really the biggest update in there that doesn't apply to this purpose. But what I would like is for the board to please vote on item 14.4C and approve the updated board bylaw 9270, so then that way we can update it in our system. So when we do bring our handbook back, either in November or December, then we are up to date in that one, please. And with that, because the board bylaw conversation really has nothing to do with the superintendent, they are the board's bylaws, that I'm now going to turn that over to you, Mrs. Burns.
So I think in looking at all of the bylaws from, in item A, which are from other school districts, it is very clear that the law only defines conflict of interest in terms of money, in terms of personnel decisions, in terms of are you going to benefit from this financially? And I think that we use the phrase conflict of interest, meaning you have some other conflict, but I don't think that it's appropriate to talk about a volunteer coaching aspect in relation to a bylaw that governs conflict of interest, which is obviously having to do with dollars. So at this time, I would propose that we adopt the updated language for bylaw 9270 as proposed by CSBA and move on. So if there are any questions or comments on that at this point, please raise your hand. Okay, if not, then can I get a motion to approve item C, the updated bylaw 9270?
I motion that we approve item 14.4C, the updated CSBA Board Bylaw 9270.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. A second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Roll call vote with the advisory vote first. Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker, or I'm sorry, Mr. Marzano?
I have a question now that you've gotten to me. Sorry.
Sure, no.
My brain's slow. So being that this discussion with this agenda item, and it was publicly discussed with me, you just said that it is obvious that a volunteer is not a conflict of interest. Is that correct?
Well, there's no money, and it's clear that the conflict of interest language is limited to money.
Okay.
I mean, every section talks about voting on items where it's a contract.
Right.
Or it's a personnel, so you have a salary of someone who might be related to you. There's absolutely no discussion in there of having a conflict if I were to vote on an expulsion of one of my own children. There's no conflict in there of, so anything that has not, is not related to money. So I think this is not the appropriate bylaw, even for the discussion that we were having. I think we were confused because it was said there is a conflict of interest, so we looked up the bylaw that dealt with conflict of interest, and it is not on topic.
Really, my only real response is just going back to what was given to us by legal counsel. That's all I can really say at this point.
What was given to us, the email stating that volunteering is not a conflict of interest?
No, it was specifically about the coaching piece being a conflict of interest. And that's just a legal.
Where was that legal?
That was the document that was reviewed, the legal document that was reviewed with the board. That talked about the conflict of interest, so.
The legal opinion?
Yes.
And I think that is talking specifically about supervision. So it's similar to other laws that talk about a board member cannot be an employee. Our policies that administrators and principals and consolidatees from there and up cannot be coaches. But none of that is reflected in this bylaw. It has nothing to do with 9270.
Is there a bylaw that does?
I don't know.
Haven't you
I have not found
gone
one.
over?
No, no, this, if,
So you are looking.
if there was one, this is the bylaw that our attorney said would influence that. However, it doesn't, this bylaw update does not specifically speak to a board member volunteering in other capacities, if that makes sense.
This is a learning curve for me personally, because I have actually asked if I should recuse myself from voting on things in closed session because I felt that I was too personally close to the item being discussed. And I should not have, because the law does not say that I need to. So I've learned.
And if I might add, looking at all those other school policies, they all follow along with the CSBA is saying. It doesn't say anything about a
Correct.
volunteer coach being a board member or not. Doesn't prohibit it or
I
anything
mean,
like that.
bylaws, right?
Yeah, the bylaw, looking at the other school districts' bylaws, no one else addresses it.
Yeah. So I do seek, in the future, consistency and clarification on the fact that I do still hold that a board member should be willing to abide by the same policies that we expect of our employees. But that will be a discussion for another time and another bylaw that, should we come across it. It does not have anything to do with 9270. And at this point, we're just looking to update this particular bylaw as is. So we do have a motion from Mr. Whitaker. Did you want to make a second?
There's been a.
Oh, there was a second.
We're
You
roll
were
call.
voting.
And he had a question, I think,
I did.
during roll call, which is
Correct.
fine.
So let me,
So we have yeses all the way down.
do you have any other questions, Mr. Mirzan?
No, I don't.
Do you feel ready to vote?
Sure. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I am also a yes,
Thank you.
and we will move on to unaudited actuals with Mr. Critchfield.
Thank you, President Burns. So tonight is the opportunity for the board to be able to review the district's expenditures for the prior fiscal year. So this is a look back. This is not a budget. These are actuals. So this is what was spent from July 1st, 2022 until June 30th of this year, referred to as unaudited actuals. We're really good in the business world of schools of having really dull names to describe things. So it's how we spent our money, and it is yet to be audited, which is why it's referred to as unaudited actuals. I'm going to draw your attention mostly tonight to the first attachment, which is a PowerPoint presentation that describes and summarizes the numerous other attachments that show all of our fiscal spending. I'm happy to look at those too, if you would like, but I'm going to use that PowerPoint as my guiding document. So you'll see under revenue, we still have our largest portion of funding comes through the local control funding formula. So 72% of our revenue came through that source. That has to do with how many students we have and how often they attend school. And there are formulas based on grade spans and what a student is valued to be worth in revenue for the state to then educate them. And so you put all that together, and that made up 72% of our funds. In the dollar amount on the next slide, slide 3, you'll see that was a total dollar amount of $45.7 million. And then we have other state and federal revenues and some local revenues that were part of that. I know this question has come up in the past, so slide 4 at the end of page 2, I think is helpful for the board because there are formulas that interact with each other regarding local property taxes and how that funds education. And I've heard many times different interpretations of what that looks like. So if you notice on that pie chart, you have the 45.7 million that came in through the local control funding formula. 32.1 million of that 45.7 came through local property taxes. So the state formula for our funding is based on student enrollment and attendance. And then you look at your local property taxes, and there are formulas involved on what % of that money goes to fund local education. If the amount is less than the state formula, which it was, then the state makes up the difference. And so that 45.7 million is actually split into two revenue sources, 32.1 of that coming from local property taxes, and the other 13.5 million coming from state aid. It's all in summary version, looks like state money, but that's actually how it's split. Now, if for some reason property taxes came in way higher and they exceeded that funding formula, then the district would get to keep the excess and we would be referred to as a basic aid district. You'll see that we're 13.5 million off that number. We're nowhere near being a basic aid district. The best examples of basic aid you'll find on the Monterey Peninsula and places like that in the state where they have high property values, high property taxes, and not as many students. And so we're far from that number. And then when you look at our expenditures, you'll see the breakdown there. And we spend an overwhelming majority of our money on our people. It takes a lot of people to provide good education to our students. And so you'll see that split into certificated salaries and classified salaries, but also employee benefits. That has to do with the state retirement systems that the district is required to pay into on behalf of our certificated and classified employees, and also the health and welfare benefit caps that are included in our bargaining contracts. So if you look at that in a dollar amount.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So our property taxes are accounted for in the LCFF portion.
Correct.
What is the local at 2.1 million?
So local comes in a variety of forms. That could be local revenue through funds of state or of like local scholarships. It can be through local revenues in the sense of if we bring in revenue through any sort of like bond sales. It could be local revenue in transferring money from the county to the district. It's all of those things get encapsulated under local. And then back to expenses, if you group together those three categories, salaries for both classified and certificated, and then benefits, that totaled 46.187 million last year. As we get into the next slide, slide 7, you'll see that our general fund revenues exceeded our expenses. And then those are split into two categories, unrestricted and restricted funds. And so you'll notice that unrestricted funds, we only exceeded our revenues by $153,000. In restricted revenues, we exceeded by 2.8 million. The reason that there's a large discrepancy there is there were numerous restricted monies that came in last school year that have a 3 or 4 year time frame on when you can spend that money. So it wouldn't be wise to spend all of that money in the first year you bring it in. So those revenues will be accounted for in year 1, even though all of the expenditures will get spread out over a 3 or 4 year period. And then always my favorite slide, slide 8, looking at our fund balances over the last 8 years. And I'm going to be super happy when that 17-18 bar slides completely off the chart when we hit some of our financial woes, which are well within the rearview mirror now. As you can see, in 17-18, we ended with unrestricted funds. It's hard to read because the bar is so small, it hits the line of 0. It was 141,000. And now we ended this last year with almost 3.9 million in our unrestricted reserves and another 6.1 in restricted monies. So when you get to slide 9, the number one thing the state looks at when you close your books actually takes all of these numbers and all of these formulas and simplifies it into one thing. You take all of your expenditures in restricted and unrestricted, and you have to have at least 3% of that expenditure total left over in unrestricted funds. So based on that formula, we spent 60.2 million. 3% of that would be a little over 1.8, and we have almost 3.9. So that's a total of 6.45% reserve, and the state requirement is a 3% reserve. So we're a little more than double than the state requirement. And again, that's all in general fund. I do think it's important to note, slide 10, other fund balances. We spend the bulk of our time talking about Fund 1, the general fund. We do have other funds. The reason I think it's important to bring this up every now and again is by ed code, if one of these other funds, whether it be adult education, cafeteria fund, capital facilities, or county school facilities, if those funds are overspent, the general fund is then obligated to keep those funds whole. So if you don't balance those funds correctly, they can have an impact on the general fund.
Can you say that one more time?
Sure,
please?
I'll use an example of one fund. So let's say in the cafeteria fund, we overspend in cafeteria. We get a lot of federal money that comes in as our revenue, but then we have a lot of employees, and obviously, as Mike mentioned tonight, 85,000 meals just from 2 of our employees, the expenses to buy all that food. If our expenses exceed our revenues in the cafeteria fund, the general fund is obligated to keep that fund whole. So if for some reason we overspent by $250,000 in cafeteria, that would then become a $250,000 expense out of the general fund. So that's why when we close the books, I always highlight this. So you'll see the fund balances. Adult education had a fund balance of $166,000. Cafeteria had a balance of $2.5 million. And then our facilities funds had $960,000 and $485,000. A lot of those balances in those last 3 funds will help us with consolidation. The cafeteria fund, we have projects in line at Argonaut High as the consolidated high school and at Ione Junior High converting to Ione Elementary, where we will be adding more ovens, more equipment, more refrigeration walk-in units and freezer walk-in units. Those things can all be paid for out of the cafeteria fund. And so that's one of the reasons why we've let that fund grow a little bit, as we'll start spending those down over the next year or 2, okay? And so in summary, we're on a good path. We're, of course, always watching the state economy as potential recessions are predicted to come up over the next year. But this was a strong way in closing the books of last year, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Did anybody have any questions? Should I start? No. Mr. Marzano, did you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
If there are no questions, would someone please make a motion? This is an item you need a motion on, correct?
Do the board, even though you can't change what happened, you still
Right.
need to approve what happened.
We will.
I move to approve item 14.5, the unaudited actuals, 22-23.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker. And Mr. Crow, we'll do a roll call vote with the advisory vote first. Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Crow.
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
And Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. That concludes unaudited actuals. Mr. Critchfield?
Thank you.
And you will be now presenting a maintenance truck proposal.
Yes, we have 2 maintenance trucks that we're proposing that the board approved the purchase this evening. We have put an emphasis over the last couple years, as you've noticed, on our vehicles. The board purchased 5 diesel buses last year. We also purchased a few more vans. So we have our bus fleet and we have what we refer to as our white fleet. And there were many years where those fleets were not given a lot of attention. And so we're on a good path with those fleets, but we always need to put attention into these. This comes about actually more to do with expanding our maintenance staff than it does with any sort of vehicle situation that needs to be remedied. The board approved adding 2 additional district level maintenance positions last year, 2 M4s, to expand our maintenance team at a district level. That is already proven to be fruitful. Anytime we can do projects in-house, we save a lot of money versus going out to contractors. I think I used the example when Joe was here of the redoing of a third of the gymnasium floor at Ione Junior High, and how that one project by our maintenance staff saved us $100,000. And so right now, we don't have enough trucks for all of those maintenance workers, and so this proposal is to add 2 more trucks. I'm proposing that we shift a few things around. The board approved back in the spring the purchase of 7 new vans. The vans are proving to be incredibly difficult to get our hands on. My 2 favorite words since COVID started, supply chain. And so we are running into issues. We still do not have those vans that the board approved. We anticipate to have 3 or 4 of those 7 vans in December. I don't even know if all 7 will become available by the end of this school year. These trucks are available now. If the board approves them, we would contact Folsom Lake Ford tomorrow, and then they would need to do the work to add all of the stuff in the bed for the toolkits and everything else. And so we could have those trucks very, very soon. This would not be an overall increase. We would hold off on buying 2 or 3 of those vans, which we're probably going to hold off on anyway because they won't be available. And then we'll reassess moving into next year's budget on whether or not we want to buy those vans. So that's the recommendation, is to purchase these 2 trucks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick question. Does the price that's on here include them adding all of the tool stuff that you mentioned on the
Yes.
trucks? Okay.
It includes all the utility boxes and everything?
Correct.
Ford does that? You don't send it out to a special spot?
They contract with someone who does it together with them, so yes, it'll be together.
If you guys don't have any additional questions, please make a motion to approve.
I move we approve 14.6, the maintenance truck proposal.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker and Ms. Clement. We'll move along with the vote. Advisory vote first. Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Our last discussion action item is a very fun thing called a GAN resolution. Mr. Critchfield.
So I do this every year, and I'm going to be honest with you. The GAN resolution is something that even some of the smartest financial brains in the state have a hard time explaining. I actually was so desperate, I asked ChatGPT what it thought of it, and it did come up with an answer. I thought it was pretty funny. And so I will do my best at explaining it. The long and the short of it is, it's a resolution that was designed to limit government spending, and because our money is public dollars, we're wrapped into this, so it's not just limited to schools. And so the whole point of the resolution is that we're verifying that the state did not exceed what's referred to as the GAN limit, and that they were within the funds based on taxes and state population. And so that's a mechanism of closing the books, which is why the resolution is coming to you now, because it's a look back on last year. And I ask that you approve this resolution. And I did include an article just to make it more confusing or help. I don't know. It's your, but anyways, that's the GAN.
I almost get offended that they expect normal elected school board members to understand these things well enough to be able to approve them cognitively.
Yeah. And it's one of those functions, I agree with you, Julia. It's one of those functions, if you go back to the unaudited actuals item,
Yes.
there is a form GAN. It's number 18 on all of my many attachments. So even for us as a school district, it takes our numbers and automatically plugs them in there. So they're even taking this kind of out of our hands to say whether or not the GAN limit was met. It's just a function of how we put all of our numbers into our financial system.
Does anyone even have enough to ask a question? Like, are you even able to? Because I'm not even able to ask a question about this, except what happened that they actually wrote a law that required this? That's my question. So, if someone would make a motion, I would be grateful.
I'm going to move to approve whatever the GAN resolution is, item 14.7.
I have a question, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, please.
There is a motion on the table, however, I have a question. This is a California thing, correct?
That is correct.
That answers your question.
This all makes sense to everyone.
Do you want a second?
No, ma'am.
Will someone please
I'll
second,
second.
please? Thank you. Roll call vote. Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I will make it a unanimous yes for you, Mr. Critchfield, and we will move on to reports. Dr. Gibson?
I do. Couple really quick things. First and foremost, she probably thought that I forgot about her tonight, but I did not. I would like to formally, she stepped out, darn it. Okay, well, when Dr. Hedegaard gets back, I will formally introduce you to her.
Okay.
She is the new assistant superintendent, so I will, we'll come back to that. That's really all I have, other than next week we're on fall break. So I wish all of our staff and students wonderful break. Maeve, do you happen to have an update about the volleyball game?
I don't. I can ask for one right now.
Okay, why don't you try and get us one? That'd
Okay.
be great. I was gonna do that, and then I got
You don't
sidetracked.
have a peep, I have a peep.
Okay.
I'll text. We'll all work on
Okay.
it.
We're working on a district-wide calendar going forward. And as soon as we have, in December, when we have our organizational meeting, all of that will go out to, for all of our sports and all of our activities.
lovely.
And we are going to ask that they do not put any school major events or major sporting events like big games on board meeting nights, especially next year when every big game will be our last big game. So I want to make sure that those of us that want to attend those can be there. So I know, sorry, Julia's giving me the look. So although I know she thought I was going to forget about her, I can go back to this now. I waited just long enough. I would like to formally introduce you as the board to Dr. Sadie Hedegaard. She is the Assistant Superintendent of Special Education in SELPA. She comes to us with just a plethora of credentials that span the special education realm of something that I don't think Amador County Unified has ever had, or the county office. And we have patiently been waiting for her to get here. We greatly appreciate that throughout her maternity leave, although she was hired. I think she probably worked the majority of her contract, even though she wasn't really supposed to be, but she's just been wonderful. She's in her second week, and it feels like she's been here forever and a part of our team. So welcome to Sadie. Thank you for joining us and really completing our team along with Dr. Palazuelos. So
Thank you, welcome.
that's all I have.
Mr. Crow, did you want to make a board report?
I don't have a report, thank you.
Mrs. Parker?
I don't have one either.
Maeve?
Okay,
Should have started with you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have Peyton, so I'll read hers first. So she said for sports, we have 2 big games against Argonaut. Volleyball is going on tonight as we speak, and in 2 weeks we're celebrating football's participation in the rivalry by going up against the Stangs. Our cross country recently ran at the Artichoke Invite in Half Moon Bay. They had lots of fun, and it was a great success for them. Water polo teams are competing in league competition currently and doing pretty well with new programs. And for event updates, Amador has our big fall rally this week, supporting all of our fall teams, and our big game parade and bonfire is October 25th, and we are formally inviting all of you to join us that night. So that's all I have for Peyton. And then for my board report, I think last board meeting we were mid-homecoming week, so the rest of the week was a success. We had really great student but also staff participation. They really got into all of our dress-up days, so our ASB class is currently thinking of like kind of a staff like prize to like reward the staff members who have been most spirited. But we had our homecoming breakfast, which was a hit, and we're super grateful for our staff for always putting on a good breakfast and making a yummy meal for all of the student body to enjoy. There was also great energy at our homecoming rally and football game, so it was just a great week. I want to shout out girls golf because they, if you remember, won the section championship last year, and they're having another phenomenal season. I think they're currently in league play, but in all of league and preseason, they're undefeated. So it's looking good for maybe another section title this year. So I've been talking to them a lot, and I think they're all super excited. They've had a lot of golf matches. Like, I know some of my friends in golf are like, I never see them at school. So I think they're having a good time though. And then since we're in the fall, we've had a bunch of like informative events to prepare seniors for like college or whatever their future endeavors are. So I know quite a few students went on a field trip to Columbia College, and they've been all been repping their like Columbia College T-shirts that they got. And then I think today and sometime in the next week or so, we've had like presentations from the University of the Pacific and a college advisor come from like giving advice on applying to UC and CSU schools. So I know a couple people who have attended those and found them super helpful. So I think that's been super nice, especially for those who, it's just a stressful time, college application. So I think it's been super helpful. And then for next week, everyone's looking forward to fall break. I know I was talking to a bunch of people, and it came up like super quick. I feel like we just started school, but everyone's definitely ready to like recharge and yeah. I know it's crazy, but yeah, yeah, everyone's super excited for that break. And then the week after we get back when break is our big game week, so we have a lot planned. This year, ASB did a lot of brainstorming, and we came up with the theme of family game night. So each like dress up day is a different board game. So Monday is the game of life. So it's like college or career day. So you wear your like rep your college attire or dress for whatever career you intend to pursue. Tuesday is sorry. So we have different class colors. So it's going to be kind of a class competition, with whose class is dressed in more of their class color. Wednesday is war, so it's all camo attire. Thursday is chess, and we're doing Amadork Day. So we haven't done that in a while, so we're bringing it back, and we're super excited for that. And then and then Friday we're calling it Big Game Night, and the junior class got like T-shirts designed, and it's like a board game. They're super cute T-shirts. So if you are looking to get a big game T-shirt, we have plenty. So I'm super excited to wear those. And then our downtown rally, which is our big game event, is on Thursday, October 26th. So you guys are all welcome to attend. It starts at 7, and it's at the end of Main Street in Jackson. And so each one of our floats this year is a different board game. So the freshmen have Monopoly, the sophomores have Family Feud, juniors have Candyland, and the seniors are Clue. And so I know we're all knee deep in building our floats and coming up with a fun skit. So we're super excited for that. And then I have one more shout out to our MTV class, because Mr. King teaches that class, and he's super good at like editing and putting the videos together, because that's how we get all of our information out to the student body. And because we've had a lot of like dress up days, they've been super good at putting together like fun promo videos that are like hilarious and just like a great start to everyone's day. And so just talking about having the new like survey to get the student voices, I just thought that we could probably put together like a super fun and informative video. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, that's all I have to report on. So thank you guys.
Or I did get an update, and Amador Varsity won the volleyball game. I haven't heard about JV.
JV Argonaut won.
Argonaut won JV? Okay.
Wow. Yay. Mr. Marzano?
No report, thank you.
Mr. Whitaker?
Just one comment, the breakfast was great. Other than that, no report.
It was great. So I was able to attend the Burger Bash at the Kennedy Mine Amphitheater, and it was the first time that both high schools had participated in the drama fundraiser together, so it was a little bit different than how Mr. Turner had done it in previous years, where it was the Broadway Bash. So now it was the Burger Bash, and it was great to see both culinary programs highlighted, as well as students from both drama programs. And I'm really looking forward to watching Mr. Geedy as he takes the program forward. I think it's going to be exciting. With that, I hope everybody enjoys their fall break. I have to look up when our next meeting is, because we don't have another one in October. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, November 8th, tentatively scheduled to be held here at the County Administration Building. Open session will start at 6:30 PM. And with that, we are adjourned. It is 8:23. We're going to roll straight into the Amador County Office of Education meeting. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order. It is 8:24. We are all in attendance. Dr. Gibson, are there any deletions or corrections?
No, there are not.
Okay. Presentations and recognitions, I don't see any on the agenda. Employee organizations, Mrs. Crow or Ms. Matheson, neither of them are in the room. I don't have any public comment cards. Did any of you want to make public comment? No? Okay. Consent agenda. This one is much smaller than the one for the district meeting. Did anybody have questions? And if there are no questions, please feel free to make a motion.
I move to approve item 8, the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker and Mr. Whitaker. We'll do the roll call vote now. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Item 9, communications. We don't have any tonight. And moving on to our discussion action items, 10.1, we get to have another public hearing. I'll go ahead and open that. And I'll read the blurb. Education Code Section 60119 requires that local governing boards hold an annual public hearing and adopt a resolution stating whether each pupil in the LEA has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials in reading and language arts, mathematics, science, and history/social science aligned to content standards and consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum framework adopted by the State Board of Education. Since there is now only one more person in the room, did you want to make a comment at the public hearing? Oh, we have 2. He's back. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to 10.2, sufficiency of instructional materials. This is a resolution presented by Mrs. Pichette.
Thank you, Board President. Oh, my computer just shut off. This is a companion item. I don't know what happened. Thank you. This is a companion item to the one that was presented in the ACUSD board meeting. It's a resolution for sufficiency of materials, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Seeing that there are none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I will move to approve item 10.2, sufficiency of instructional materials resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
I'm so sorry, I do have a question.
Absolutely.
It was standard practice that we would read the resolution. Are we no longer doing that?
We certainly can.
No, I
You
just,
prefer it?
I just now noticed it.
Oh, we haven't for the last several meetings, but, I mean, we can if you want.
No, I was just curious. Was there a reason why?
No, I just think it was assumed that you had read it, and if you had questions on the language, you would ask. I think that some of them are really long. I wouldn't want to read them.
I think part of it was that there were times that we had multiple resolutions, and so the meetings just were so long with meeting things that are posted that anybody has access to. So we make sure that the title is very clear as to what the resolution is for, and then it can be accessed that way.
Thank you.
So we were voting. Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So 10.3, we have some more unaudited actuals. Mr. Critchfield?
Yes, this is a companion item, but obviously has different numbers in it. We closed the books on the county side as well. The county has a totally separate funding stream that comes in. We manage numerous things on the county side. The largest expenditures have to do with the special education programs for students with moderate to severe disabilities. And so in summary, the total expenditures for the county are quite a bit less. It's a much smaller budget than on the district side, but still significant, of nearly 8.9 million. And so we meet the reserve requirement on the county side as well with 4.53%. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions that they would like to ask? Mr. Marzano?
A question?
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
Okay. If there are no questions, then I would entertain a motion.
Before I do that, I just want to point out that the county were required to have a 4% rather than 3%.
That's correct.
And with that, I make a motion that we approve the unaudited actuals for the County Office of Education.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Actually, aye.
Proceed.
No, aye.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker. Okay. And I'm also a yes.
Thank you.
10.4.
We're back to the GAN.
Yeah.
This is companion from the district.
Yeah.
Same concept, have to show it in the county budget as well.
I move that we approve item 10.4, the GAN resolution.
I'll second. Roll call vote. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
And Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes.
Thank you.
We have for information only the current personnel recommendations. And another opportunity for board reports. Did you have anything to add, Dr. Gibson? I do not. Did anyone else have anything they would like to add? If not, our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, November 8th, tentatively scheduled to be held here at the Amador County Administration Building. Open session will start immediately following the ACUSD building.